Like,
I actually need to make an effort
there's
to
little
go
Woody.
meet your barista.
Oh, we're on. They're so funny and so nice. Okay, good morning. Here we are for the Board of County Commissioners planning session of September 27th, 2018. My wife's birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yes, thank you. Happy birthday, Debbie. And we have a full agenda for the next, 3 hours, 4 hours, 3.5?
3 hours.
3 hours. And let's go ahead and start with number one, which is 2019 draft docket review. And we have Josh Cummings here. Oh, do we need to do introduction? Let's do that for the people at home. Please, go ahead, Gary.
Romero Chavez,
Gary.
County Manager.
Gary Edwards.
John Hutchings.
Joshua Cummings, Director of Community Planning and Economic Development.
And over here? Great, thank you very much.
Yeah, Joshua Cummings, Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. I didn't have my mic on.
He just
Oh,
Sorry about that.
It was not an echo.
Is that
thank
happening
you.
again?
Thought that was like repeat Thursday or something.
Yeah, repeat and repeat.
My dad used to always say that, repeat and repeat. Go ahead, Josh. What are we talking about?
You wanna-
We'll start with Romero.
The intent of today's planning session, Commissioners, there is really no particular items for you to decide or anything. It's just begin conversation, provide you some updates on some key issues, and also at the end, hopefully there is some time for you to just have a conversation as to what else you would like to hear from the staff, and we'll accommodate that at a future date.
Okay.
Great, yeah, and so thank you for the opportunity to kind of revisit some of the work that we had put together earlier on in the year of 2018. It was helpful for me to kind of dust this off because I hadn't, the items that are appearing here other than HCP hadn't really torn into for the recent past. So to re-engage on some of the development code dockets, specifically on this item, and remember kind of what we'd done in the beginning of 2018 was helpful as a refresher as we get into 2019 and think about where we're going next. So I think it would be helpful. You can see on this.
Commissioner Blake is 3 minutes.
3 minutes out for Commissioner Blake. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Keep going.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is the work of the development code docket. This other paper that you have here is the comprehensive plan and the joint planning request. So let's set this one just kind of aside for the time being.
Okay.
And this one is the direct request on the development code and how we can impact what we're doing in the community. And so if you'll remember kind of going back in time to where we were in spring and just before, we had a whole list of things that were yellow. We had like 15 or 20 things that were in that yellow categories. And commissioners, along with staff, you guys asked directly what are the top priorities that can be done relatively quickly and would have the most impact on creating efficiency for citizens and customer service for our citizens as well. Excuse me, efficiency for our staff and customer service improved for our citizens. And so the staff provided a list. You guys worked from that list and then prioritized the list for staff to work on. And that's how we came up with these designations at the top. You'll see A3, the review of the regulations for marijuana producers and processors. A5, review the administrative variances, limits and zone ordinances. A7, review low impact development standards. A9, the industrial park correctional facilities as a special use district. A16, amend the zoning ordinances for site plan review process of single family residence and other permits. And then along with that, there were some administrative things that were on the list that could be wrapped up into some of the other stuff that our staff member, Jeremy Davis, was engaged in. And he relayed that these could be done in a relatively quick manner and efficiently to kind of knock them off the list, which I thought was another great example of staff stepping up to the plate. A6, the Shoreline Master Plan Critical Areas Ordinance revisions to ensure the consistency with the update. So that was already taking place. So Brad Murphy was already working on that. So to capture that in the next steps, that was placed into there. One of the, like I said, one of the quick things to be able to do was the miscellaneous clerical errors, and then to change the name of the chapter 20.60 violations and enforcement and administrative procedures. So that's the rundown of the things that are still on the docket. I would jump down to the bottom where it says completed code amendments, and that's the success that we've already had this year and the items that this board had requested that we engage in. And you'll see right at the top of that list is amend the final plat process to change the approval procedures. And that's the one where instead of the signing and going to the chair, it can also now go to the county manager for approval of the plat. That is going to shave off between 2 and 6 weeks for developers or folks trying to get big projects pushed through. So again, another big win that we accomplished in 2018 at the board's direction. Building code amendments, huge. This is the one where you don't need a permit to do things like an accessory building that's from 200 square foot. Now it's up to 400 square feet. You can put solar panels on your house. You can replace windows of like size and type, same with doors, without coming into the county to get a permit. Again,
BC 1-3?
BC 1-3.
Okay, thank you.
Sir?
And the first two, the amend for the final plat approval process as well as the building code amendments. If I have something to say about those two, by themselves have created an incredible benefit to the citizens. It has streamlined the process. From the developer's perspective, I have received positive feedback as to how the final plat approval process has been streamlined the process. And the elements that you approve on building code by expanding the footprint of the non-permitting structures doesn't need a permit, that by itself has created a lot of streamlining process. So I think kudos to staff, but also I like to say thank you for the leadership from the commissioners in taking the lead on this.
Oh, you're welcome. Do you have something?
Yes, I do. I'd just like to follow up on that. For an example, the Ag Committee, one of the many committees that we have, brought some of those issues to our attention to help them be able to function. So that was advisory information coming in from an Ag Committee requesting that we make some changes, and I don't know that all of them are attributed to them, but it's just a good example of community input and recognizing those committees that are out helping us on a regular basis.
Well, not future applicants, but would you, this is anecdotal, about how many, not number-wise people, just a few people or a significant number of people, of citizens that are impacted by this currently?
Well, so any citizen in the rural county can utilize these permit exempt opportunities, so all are impacted by this.
Okay.
So it's big. That's why these two I think are really important, but BC 1-3 directly for the impact on the citizens of the rural community, it's big.
Do you have any idea if we have any applicants in progress now? They're going to say, oh my gosh, thank you.
We have a few, but I'm not sure how many.
A few, okay, that's fine. Thank you.
And we just passed this, a month and a half ago or so?
Oh, it's freshy fresh.
Right, and so we did the communication process. We went through the whole, as we've been requested to do, and we agree is a good idea, the Facebook, I get in trouble for saying that. The 72-year-old chap. Anyways.
It's not an advertisement.
Facebook, Twitter, we did a press release from our shop. We also put it on our website. And then we sent out throughout the Planning Commission all the different, making sure that people were aware of it. We want people to utilize these opportunities. The funny thing about this is it's permit exempt. So if people read the code and they recognize I'm going to do a less than 400 square foot side building, they don't have to talk to us. So we're not going to know if they build a 400 square foot building because it's exempt. They don't have to talk to us. So that's kind of the funny chicken and egg thing. I can't really give a number because they're not going to come in and talk to us.
And these are things that we as a commission or as a board came up with, or CPED came up with, or a combination? Well,
to Commissioner Edwards' earlier statement, I think that this one was a partnership with one of our citizen committees, and some of the pieces that were part of that were informed, as well as staff and the commissioners. So listening to our citizens and our constituents and finding a path forward is part of CPED's mission.
Beautiful, thank you.
So I would just real quickly, Commissioner Blake, we're on this document here. We've run through the things that are still to be accomplished and the items that we were able to accomplish at the bottom. And then, so we're on sign code update, 2016-17 docket, and then the Set for Fire Authority impact fees. So those accomplishments combined then with the top in the yellow of what we're looking forward to doing in 2019 kind of the groundwork. And I think to your question a second ago, Commissioner Hutchings, on how are these items informed, through this kind of dialogue. And so that's my baseline. That's pretty much all I have in terms of an update. But I look forward to hearing from you what your priorities are, and if what we've got here is still what you're thinking, and if there's additional items we should be thinking about.
Are we going to get into this form at this point in time?
We can if you'd like. I
Yeah.
just broke it up.
Are we
so
finishing up this one though first?
That's totally your call.
Yeah, let's
Okay,
let's
no,
finish
no,
this.
no, I want to finish this. I just didn't, you said you were, I thought you were kind of done with it, but,
I'm done with this one.
yeah.
Pretty
you're done
much.
with that, right?
But if you've got addition, I'm done
Oh,
with it. But
yeah.
I'd like to hear your input.
Can you go through the new proposals in 2018?
Sure, totally.
On this, if you have any questions on the yellow.
On the yellow?
Yeah.
No, because A3 we're going to solve pretty soon. Right?
Yeah, so this is, so what we talked about, this is the list that back in the early spring we combined with the,
But in the completed code amendments, A through whatever, the one for, if I get the name of it, it's like RTA, that's in Tumwater, we adjust that piece of property. I can't remember the name of it. It was one of the very first ones we did this year that Jeremy was on top of, that we had to go over to Tumwater, get their city portion buy-in.
Was that the previous surface?
That was impervious surface.
Yeah, with the
Tumwater.
O'Neill.
No,
No,
no, this is Joanna.
if I had to come up with a name, would it be
It was an
Shattuck?
RTA. It was one of the quick ones we did. I don't see it
Would it be
here.
Oh,
Shattuck?
yeah.
It was the quick ones.
It was the, yeah.
RCA, RTA,
It
RBA.
was
It's not listed here, that's
a
all.
land use change.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought it was
Coordinated with
pervious soil
Tumwater.
issue.
No, it was
It was
not.
a land use change coordinated with Tumwater, because a specific person it was a she.
It was a lady, yeah, I can't remember her
Oh.
name,
so add that, you're saying add that to the completed code amendments as a
yeah. Yeah,
success?
just, that's all we gotta do. It's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with it. I just wanna make sure you get the list
Yeah,
completed,
great.
that's all.
Good, I'll check in with staff and make sure that that's.
Jeremy knows.
Good.
Jeremy knows exactly.
RTA, Tumwater land use change.
Yeah, something like that.
Roger that.
I can't remember the acronym. Okay, that's it.
Well, I'll take any additional successes that you
Yeah,
guys can
that's
think
what
of.
it
for
is,
sure.
yeah, that's all it is.
Well, we did have one that had to do with pervious soil that we changed to match the UGA area of Tumwater. We changed the percentage.
That was the percentage to align with the Tumwater development code.
That's right.
But did it have impact on anybody or just?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we did it. There was a request, I don't remember all the particulars, but it was, and matter of fact, I would do a follow-up on that. That's one of the main issues, I think, that we yet need to address countywide.
It's coming up on the agenda.
Okay.
Okay, you wanna move on to this one? Is that where we're at?
So, the county manager had asked that I check in on the new proposals in 2018 on the same sheet, if you'd like,
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. Okay.
I mean-
Fine with me.
at the pleasure. So, we do have Jeremy Davis that can provide more detailed briefing information on these items at a later date, but just for a high level, or I could call him in, he's at his desk if we'd like. But
probably
these are the
isn't.
ones that have come in for 2018. The first citizen request, amend community-oriented shopping center zone, COSC, in the Olympia UGA zoning ordinance Title 23. And I won't read through it, but again, unless you'd like me to, this is one of those proposals where we receive a request from outside of a government entity or generated within staff, and citizens ask us to do these things. And so,
This is the big problem across from Satina.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Corner that they empty.
Well, we're not gonna put the courthouse.
So,
I don't, well, okay.
this
You can speak your mind. 'Cause
this is a good amendment, yeah,
right on.
a good proposal.
There you go. We appreciate citizens' input. The second one is the hobby kennel regulations. So citizen Jan Burns has proposed an amendment to the regulations for dog kennels in the residentially zoned areas. Again, staff is researching the information on this to provide you a more in-depth picture of what each one of these amendments is.
Can you scratch the surface for me on this issue? On what she's after, or he's after? Jan is a boy and girl name.
I believe that they want to have the opportunity to have a expanded kennel within the zoning regulations of the area where she currently
In a
resides.
residential area.
Residential area.
And currently, if more than 2 dogs is a kennel or something like that? Something silly?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
No, it's
'cause
not 2. It's a little more than 2, but
Okay.
And are we coordinating with that industry as we move forward on that?
so
Well,
what?
You have not approved yet.
Thank you.
No.
This
You're not
is
doing anything
proposals.
yet. Just bring
Okay,
it.
and
Just to bring-
who,
bring
okay,
up
who's Jan Burns, a operator of a kennel somewhere now?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll
He was
let
asking
him
that
finish.
question.
He's on a roll.
Excuse me, go ahead.
And I would
He was
like,
asking the
as
same
staff
question.
moves forward, I would like to have contact with JASCOM, Joint Animal Services, because they have knowledge and/or issues with kennels,
Okay.
positive and negative, especially with the little puppy meals.
Yeah,
And we want to be sure we're not,
Or neutral, huh?
That's all good information, but again, this is just a proposal that came in.
uh-huh.
You need to approve to include it in the docket
Oh.
Before you go
staff
forward,
start coordinating
to do what you're
any
asking.
type of,
I'm putting the dog before the leash is what I'm doing. The leash before the dog.
Okay, he's got
Okay, I'm
something
done.
to say. Go ahead, Gary.
and we're
I
not
guess
expecting
I'd like-
any decisions today.
I would
No
like-
decisions today.
We're ready to make
Well,
decisions.
even but placing it on somewhere, I'd like to know, have we had a problem? I haven't heard of a problem.
What's the
so-
problem statement?
Not sure.
There isn't one, she just applied.
It's
Well,
about
they-
that she wants to. Sorry.
The problem statement is that
Citizen.
they like to have dog kennels in residential areas.
Right.
But there are now.
That they're not.
Show
Yes.
me
They're not
one.
allowed in residential
No,
areas.
they are.
Show me one.
I can, out
In
on
the unincorporated.
Yelm Highway.
Unincorporated or
Yelm Highway?
Unincorporated.
Yeah, there's a nice big one out on Yelm Highway on the left when you're
Oh,
going.
yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, you said show me one. I don't have a whole bunch.
Yeah, but that's not in a residential area,
Well,
is it?
certainly it is. There's houses all around there.
There's also a commercial area there.
I don't know.
It's a
the
commercial
answer to that.
operation.
So
It is.
I think that the key indicators in this citizen request are the specifically home occupation hobby kennels and defining what that actually means and how that is unique.
Here's the bottom line. It's a citizen initiative. Let them bring it forward. Let them
Right.
package it. And they'll see what the problem statement is, and we'll see what we're.
Again, yeah, this wasn't generated by staff. This was generated by a citizen.
Yeah.
North Wind Kennel?
Oh, maybe
Is that
that
what you're
is.
talking
the-
about?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful facility.
Yeah.
But it's not this.
Oh, okay.
That's not a hobby.
No, that's definitely not a hobby.
Well, actually, I was concerned that we don't overregulate,
Well,
somebody
yeah.
like that.
Let it develop and then
You-
see what
you-
happens.
You're not at that point.
Okay.
Please, this is just an introduction of
Okay.
what might be coming up.
Okay, good enough.
What might be
You're
coming?
afraid of a litter of
No.
these hobbies? Okay,
Okay, plat extension.
there we go.
Proposed by citizen Jeff Pantier, looking for the approval and authority process for the plat extensions. This again is a proposal that's been provided to our staff and yet to be fully fleshed out for presentation to the board. But you can see it's the plats with 100 lots or more could be granted 5 two-year extensions. So this would help
Oh,
in
that's
terms
good.
of, in terms of
This is
how
good.
the building economy is working and making sure that
This is very good.
once a plat is approved, if they get into a place where they need an extension, they've got an opportunity for an extension.
Okay, I do have a question about
No,
that.
but I think the proposal is to have that approval be done administratively as opposed to going to the hearing examiners. Because right now, the extensions, they have to prepare a staff report, they have to prepare to the hearing examiner, they have to justify that
Every time.
every time. So the
So
proposal.
there's time and cost to that.
So the
Sure.
proposal is to have that process, since there's already in code allowed extensions,
One time.
right, allowed extensions to have that being done administratively.
That's amenable. What do you thought?
That's the proposal.
What are you thinking?
Okay, my question is, why would we limit it to 100 or more? Did I hear 100, with 100 lots or more? Why would we limit it to that? And here's the deal. During our most recent downturn, I don't know, 2008, 9,
Yeah, something
that
like
era,
that. Yeah.
a lot of folks that were doing smaller developments in that boom period prior to that got caught by their inability to continue, whether it was financially feasible or if they had the money. And I don't understand how come we're putting a line in there of 100 or more. I can think of one that was I want to say about 10 lots down in the Rochester area. Had we been in a position that we could have extended when that was brought to our attention, because it delayed for quite a period of time, that would have helped us in our sewer connections down there and getting more revenue coming in to deal with the utility outlay that the county had put out some years earlier. So a 6 to a person that's getting going, or the small developer, I'll just say using 6 as an example, could be a big issue. Why are we saying it has to be 100?
So we're not, Commissioner, we're not saying there is 100. This is a proposal by a developer.
I know, but I don't want that
You have
limited.
to bring that question up when it comes time to the thing.
When the commission is ready to approve this, you can amend that. You can amend
Okay.
it as a commission, say you would like to.
So put it for note right now and then bring it up and then we'll change it when it comes
Well,
time.
I guess, yeah, can we make a note on there to make sure that?
Well, the citizen proposed 100.
Right.
This
Not
is-
us.
Right,
yeah,
right.
so
A citizen did it.
we're not
Right.
putting the limit.
Okay.
It's not-
Okay.
Your statement is great, but it's wrong timing right now. so.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not we, it's the citizen.
Yeah, he might
Okay.
want it just 100. so,
Okay.
Okay.
Good enough.
All right, what's next?
Oh, I mean,
Get
you're
you some
making a
coffee.
good point.
Okay. I'm just trying to protect everybody.
Yeah, we got it.
And that will be some of the
Against
decision.
themselves.
When you face the decision.
Me against myself.
When you face the decision to include this item on the development code docket, either you can accept as presented, or you can direct the staff with modifications.
You could put 101 maybe.
Okay, good enough.
So
All
I
right.
think this is just a nice guidepost for this conversation, and obviously we'll follow up as we head into 2019 with a full briefing from our staff, and we can set this one aside and move on to the comprehensive plan if you'd like. So that's this
yeah.
one.
Okay.
And you guys have heard quite a bit about this in terms of the multiple items that are on the comprehensive plan amendment for the periodic update.
The top 2 are super important. Go ahead.
And so this, you guys have seen this list repeatedly. I'm not sure what more I can do other than read the items. They're all part of the comprehensive plan as we're working through the process.
Can you elaborate on the child care center? I can't remember what the problem statement is.
Oh, I can't remember either. I really focused on this one. But we can definitely make a note of it to make sure that staff is re-informing you guys on the specific items.
Is that really the allowing child care centers on all
Not,
land use designations?
I thought it was the number of people
Number of
to,
kids.
Number of kids per.
Like the
per-
county.
per right, and not doing it in the home versus not, and doing it in a formal location. And that, but it's super important in a lot of ways for the economy, because the whole new, well, it's not new, but moms and dads that have to drop off their kids is where I'm going to kind of get to their work. So when the center is closed and the certification of the people who work there is kind of an issue, that's a whole kind of
Yeah.
struggling families issue, is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say.
Maybe
ahead.
we can ask Jeremy, who is this item.
So this is an economic
Jeremy,
driver
could
in
you
my
any of
mind.
these? Lisa or Megan, will you grab Jeremy, please? Thank you.
We can call Jeremy just to give you a.
Jeremy's here.
He's coming.
What does he have? Jeremy has mental
Are
telepathy
you
here.
watching this on TV?
Yeah. Oh,
Live streaming.
okay, okay.
Good man.
So this is not tied to the kennel issue,
The kids.
the number of kids.
Wireless, and then we're now
So-
permitted childcare centers, and what is that?
So with the wireless communication facilities, we need to update our wireless code. So that it's consistent with current federal law on that. Also, the 3 cities are going through and updating their wireless codes right now, and I met with them briefly last week on that. And so Tumwater is actually going to be the first out of the gate to go to hearing. We have a contractor that's working on ours. It's the same contractor as Tumwater's. So we'll see how their hearing goes, and I'll probably be attending that.
Feldman, they will
Yeah.
have a contract with.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So
And then the permitted childcare.
with permitted
Let me
childcare
finish.
centers,
Sorry. You asked me to come here and talk. Go ahead.
just real brief, we just went through state law and our own code to make sure we're consistent with that. Crosby has already completed the draft amendments for that, and that'll just move forward as a group with other amendments that you see on this list.
And what
So-
was it?
What was
The problem.
What it was trying to solve? You remember?
We needed to go through our code to make sure we permitted it in the appropriate locations per state requirements. I don't believe Crosby found an issue on that, but I haven't read the final amendment that she drafted, so.
That's
But that was it.
That's a child care center?
Child care centers, yeah.
Oh, okay. Gary has a question for you.
Okay, on two issues. The child care centers, I don't know where we're at on it, but I want to make sure that we're making it as convenient as possible
This is the point.
for young parents.
Yep.
This is
you
the
know.
point, yes.
So if that means in a residential area, I don't see that as a problem.
Well, I don't know the true problem statement, but.
Well, yeah, I just want to make sure that we're trying to make it the least restrictive so that those individuals that need that help with childcare can get it
It's convenient-
possibly down
convenient.
the block.
Sure.
you know.
Certainly.
So that's kind of,
So put that up high on the list.
okay. And then on the federal issue, on the wireless communication facilities, why are we putting a lot of time into wireless communication? And the reason I ask that, isn't there a move afoot from the federal authorities as basically gonna supersede any local ordinance that might be in place? Because I think they've run into a lot of resistance from governmental entities that are dealing with this, that are impeding the process. And it was my understanding that it's going to be some kind of, almost like railroads, they're going to have the ability to move forward without all the restrictions that are taking place now. Is
Well-
anything to that?
Okay. So that's my understanding that our code already is contrary to what the FCC has said, has preempted us on. And so that's one of the issues with our code. And they're also supposed to come out with a memo this week or next week that our consultant has informed us of, that may also have some other fields where they're going to be preempting us. So that is one of the issues with our code right now, is we're trying to regulate things or have on our books that we're regulating something that we're already preempted from. And so it really lacks clarity for the wireless communication companies and also our citizens as to what we can actually regulate. And so one of our tasks with updating our wireless code is to ensure that we're not trying to occupy any fields that are already preempted by the FCC for wireless facilities.
Are we going to be spending staff time on something that just isn't going to matter anyway, because they're going to come out in a couple weeks with the rules that we're going to have to follow? That's my concern.
Well, the FCC already came up with the rules, and we're just trying to align our code in order for us to manage the.
We can't just adopt whatever they're putting out?
And that's what we're trying to do, is adopt those
Yeah,
federal
but it's
regulations
got,
to the code.
what, 300 hours next to that, or 250?
Because there's no, it takes work to take all the federal regulation as any other federal regulation and apply to.
So there's adopt and then there's rubber stamp. Adopt means to go through each one and to make sure. Rubber stamp means just put it and
Because if we
boom.
were to, if we were to somewhat take that federal regulation, rubber stamp it, I don't think we will be doing a benefit.
Sir.
No,
to
we
citizens.
need to review it for sure, but I'm just trying to, staff time, it's important. Look out for staff time. Try to make your job as easy as we
And
can.
just to give you an example, some of the urban areas, the cities are struggling with this new regulation because the FCC ruled they can have portable antennas.
Portable.
Portable antennas. So they said there's a very small, but the equipment to support those antennas is pretty significant. So there, the cities are at the position to how they're going to be regulating that. They're not going to be having those big monster antennas every 100 feet.
Oh, no, we don't want that.
So, and that is probably, really, that is how we take the federal regulation and try to apply to a local government without having to have a negative effect.
Okay.
That is really the gist of this process.
Okay.
Okay.
Regarding childcare,
Yeah, back to that.
back to childcare centers.
Somebody stand by the door.
Number one, did this come to us? How did this rise to the level?
So
It is.
It's been 5 years.
since the last comprehensive plan update in 2005, we're required to go through and look for changes in state law and case law and federal law and review those to see if there are any changes necessary to our code. So when we actually do our periodic update to our comprehensive plan, we also have to include and make changes to our development code so that we're not inconsistent with those changes in state and federal and case law. And so that's why most all of these are on this list, is for that reason. So
Okay, and do we have like a kind of an ETA when this will be coming back to the board?
You want to come join us, Allison?
And the reason I ask, while you're coming up, Allison, the reason I ask is, as Commissioner Blake was saying, this is of paramount importance to folks with kids, especially in light of the teacher strikes with the delay of school this year. And people were scrambling to get their kids somewhere, and all the daycare centers were maxed out and full. People had to take time off. I mean, this is a critical issue for a lot of these folks that are impacted directly by it.
To the home and to the economy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and so I would say Crosby Carter did do the review that was required under state law. What we found is in the rural codes of the county, we didn't find any areas where we don't permit it. There wasn't any inconsistency. There are some areas we'll probably be looking at with the cities when we update the codes for the joint areas, the urban growth areas, for permitting them. That's a little bit more of a review because the cities are also going through this review as well. And so updating our urban growth area codes is something that would be taking place in the future. But for the rural codes, which is what would be coming in front of you as the package for the comprehensive plan update, probably toward the end of this year and first quarter of next year now, we're not seeing any changes that we need to make. We can't even, it's permitted. People can open child care centers. That doesn't mean that they don't run into issues with licensing and with other things that are beyond our control in land use permitting. But the land use permitting where they can be located in our current codes does not seem to be a barrier.
And so the benefit to the citizens is they can look at, after this is complete, they can ensure that they can use the state regulations and our regulations and that there isn't confusion in between. And so when we align, we create efficiencies for the citizens that want to do these things in our rural community.
All right, thank you.
On the UGA overlap that we're trying to coordinate with municipalities, my concern there is that I don't know where they're going and trying to restrict or not. I want to try to maintain as much as possible the same philosophy that we're using for the rural area as the UGA area, because I'd hate to have citizens, just because they live in the UGA, have the municipality say, well, all of the daycares have to be in a certain zoned area, and that would cause more restrictions for those citizens in the UGA. So even though we're trying to coordinate and make things work as good as we can for those UGA areas and those municipalities, it doesn't mean we're going to automatically agree with something they come up with. If they say all daycare centers have to be downtown, that's the last place I want daycare centers. So just to make sure that we're headed in the right direction.
I hear that, Commissioner, certainly, and I would say at this point, that's why we have the joint process, and it comes through the final decision-making authority is with the Board of County Commissioners for those urban growth areas. And the issue would be more, if cities have changed their regulations to permit it more widely in other zones, and we have not had the capacity to update our zones accordingly. And that certainly has been the case in the past.
Thanks.
I missed your last statement, though, because I was writing a note about child care centers downtown. What did you say, you're in the city?
Well, I'd want to make sure that wasn't a requirement,
Spread out.
that they be downtown. For an example,
Oh, I got it, okay.
I want to make it as convenient for citizens as I can, and I don't want them penalized because they happen to live in the UGA,
Got it, okay.
because downtown area is going to be no place for childcare.
Yeah, it's for Starbucks.
So as the director of CP8, I appreciate great staff being here at the table now. And so I'd let them
Yes.
think about running through the comprehensive plan updates if they're ready to do it.
However, with all the housing development downtown,
Well, that's up to them.
they'll need it,
Well, yes, but that's up to them to handle
Yeah.
the municipal area.
yeah.
All right, what else?
So you want me just to run through the list of where we're at with them? So you heard about wireless communication facilities. We talked about permitted child care centers. We are looking for the airport overlay. This is for the Olympia Airport, and they really look at that takeoff area, the potential accident zone, and noise considerations that are around the Olympia Airport, which is both within within Tumwater City, within the urban growth area, and within a little bit of it extends into the rural area. And so there are a couple of things that you will see as part of the comprehensive plan update that are related to that. It's not really been updated. We always have talked about the airport overlay. We just never made any changes to our code.
Question.
Yeah.
Didn't Tumwater annex from 93rd north? Hasn't that all been annexed?
There's still a little bit that's in the urban growth area. That's not within the airport overlay area, but there was a part that extended out into the rural area as well.
Yeah, they annexed a great portion south
Yep.
of the airport. That's what you recall?
Yes.
Yeah, there's still a portion
Okay.
unincorporated.
Past 88th or 93rd?
I think it's 93rd.
93rd.
They're down to 93rd. They own that road now, I
They
think.
go across, they went across the freeway as well, all the way to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really great visually unless I've got a map in front of me. They annexed a big area of their urban growth area, and there's still little pieces of urban growth area.
Again, I'm just trying to, let's not put a lot of effort into something they're going to get anyway, and that's all.
But there are portions that will remain within Thurston County jurisdiction regardless of the annexation.
Okay.
Then we're at, family member units, yes. So we have draft regulation standards for, what this is, we've been talking about is looking at our family member unit standards and instead developing standards for accessory dwelling units, which would allow more flexibility for a home. A family member unit is required to be a mobile home, and it's required to be temporary. For instance, when you sell the property, it needs to be removed. When the family member moves out of it, it needs to be removed. It's very hard to monitor it. And what we hear a lot at the front counter with people coming in, we have families of different generations, people who are aging, want to age in their homes, want to have flexible living situations. And the family member unit doesn't meet their needs. And so we have done quite a bit of work. We had a stakeholder focus group that was meeting to kind of go through different ideas that they had about developing standards for accessory dwelling units. We have those changes drafted, and they'll be coming forward as part of the comprehensive plan update. They're kind of tied in with our housing chapter and our housing policies.
Are we going to hear about that this year yet?
We'll see. I mean, you guys have a pretty busy rest of your year,
Yeah,
so it's kind of up to your calendar and kind of where. But certainly will be out there in the public. We could, if we can fit it in, we'd certainly love to tell you more about it this year.
But this amendment is to add flexibility to those regulations.
So you
Correct.
have stick built or something?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That type of a thing, yeah. Good.
The boundary line adjustment standards, and you'll have to forgive me, Crosby did a lot of work on this. This has been drafted and reviewed. It's ready to move forward as soon as we're ready to take it forward with the rest of the code amendments. And I don't have possession in my head all the details, but you will be hearing all of them when it comes in front of you.
But it was to improve the consistency and efficiency. So again, aligning,
Yep.
reducing confusion for the citizens when they're thinking about the use of the standards.
That particular is confusing.
Yeah, it is, and so the effort is really, there's a lot of work with our current planning staff who run into these issues with customers when they come in to make sure that the process is a lot easier in the future, and more easily understood. The CP6 manufactured housing was similar in some ways to childcare facilities. It was about ensuring that manufactured housing is permitted in our residential zones. We did that review. I don't believe that we have any changes. I'd have to go back and there might be one or two very minor changes that we're doing. But again, we went through the review. Those code changes would be coming as part of that package for the comprehensive plan. And it was about allowing manufactured homes as an alternative housing, because we want to allow for a diversity of housing types to make sure that they're permitted in our residential zones.
Would homeowner associations and such, they wouldn't be bound by anything that we're doing. We're going to lay out the minimum and whatever, and then it's up to them to have their own
Right.
processes.
And we don't usually, have a lot of say in covenants, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So we won't be interfering with community governance is, I guess, is my concern.
Nope, it's just what are permitted uses in different zones, so that you don't preemptively say within all of one zoning district where you allow other types of housing that you don't, not allow that type of housing,
Okay.
which is an affordable option for many people. CP7 is one I've been doing a lot of work on, which is addressing the Hearst decision, rural water availability, and the legislation that came out earlier this year in Gross Substitute Senate Bill 6091. We have a briefing scheduled with the board that has been bumped a couple times, so now we're out to November 1st, or we're hoping to come back to you and tell you all about all the watershed planning work that's going on with that.
Same thing I'm looking at.
It's a lot of hours.
Yeah, 1,500.
Yep,
yeah.
and let me tell you that we're definitely putting in,
Is that like an unfunded
A lot of
mandate?
time.
Because the legislation, I mean, the court said one thing, but then the legislature came out and gave us new rules and regulations, so.
Well, that was the fix.
one of the things that's going to,
Incorporate
yeah,
that into our-
right. When we come back to you in November, one of the things we'll be talking about, you'll remember earlier this year, we passed the state mandated well fee, and that portion of that fee is, it's all set up in that law. Each time you come to, before we issue a building permit that relies on a permit exempt well, that applicant needs to pay a $500 fee. This is all specified in the law. 350 of that fee goes to the Department of Ecology on an annual basis for use in the watershed where it was collected, and then the remaining 150 is retained by the local government for reasons that are unspecified. And so, we're understanding what we can use those fees for. When you set that fee, you put a sunset on it at the end of this year. And the question that you had at that time is that you wanted to make sure it was fully covering the costs of the effort to do what's required under the law. And that's part of what we'll be bringing back to you to consider.
So that goes, Commissioner, that goes to your question of unfunded mandate. So the funding was that 150 piece supposedly to cover the amount of time that would go into this fix.
Are you saying that we have the authority to change that?
You
Or
do. You could go higher.
Oh, you
go-
can't.
you
So
can't
the
go
law allows 500 or more, is that what it is?
501 or higher you can do. You can't do less than 500.
Okay.
And early in the year when you adopted the fee, you left yourself the opportunity to revisit that fee after this process is completed to determine whether you'd like to revise that.
Yeah,
And mainly by revising it, you're saying, are we getting enough and do we need to raise it?
that's
Well,
the question on the table.
I mean, we're not going to lower it because we can't,
You
right?
cannot lower it,
You
So
cannot go.
revising it looks to me like it's going to go up.
but you have that option.
Okay.
But regardless of how high it goes, a minimum of just period, 350 goes to Department of Ecology.
Correct.
I hope they use that wisely.
Yeah, and the idea for that is that it's going to go
It
into
should be the other way around, yeah.
it goes into a fund that would be used to fund projects, mitigation type projects within the watershed where it's being collected. So projects that are going to enhance stream flows, minimum stream flows in that watershed.
And so the assessment is ongoing as to what it's going to cost us to administer this. program.
Yeah, and the cost is really because the bill, as you may remember, and we set up these watershed planning groups. So it kind of, it's not really a fix. It was a Hearst pause while we figure out how much water are we projecting to use on permit exempt wells under our growth projections. We have to make an estimate of that, and then what kinds of things can we do that would mitigate for that use. And so coming to an understanding around that in each watershed in a collaborative fashion with many stakeholders around the table participating in that process in each of our 5 watersheds, that's where the time comes in.
That's that 1,500
Okay, let me
hours.
just ask on, a lot of that information, there's some standards already in place, like a single-family home uses X, 300 gallons a day or something like that. But we're not trying to resurvey that and see if that's correct or not. Or are we accepting that particular science?
Those are a lot of the things that are being discussed in these watershed groups, and that's something we'll have a lot more time to talk about on November 1st.
But it's-
The Department of Ecology is the one who's leading all those groups.
Yeah.
As you may remember.
So there is guidance out there about how to do those calculations, yes.
Our part of it is the projection, like what is the growth? So you use that standard on what the use is, and then our part is how many houses or other developments are going to be in that area into the future.
Yep. And so for instance, based on our zoning, based on the projections for growth that we get from the state and from TRPC, how many more homes are likely to be built in an area where they would need to rely on a permit exempt well? We have to make that calculation and then make a calculation about how much water use that is.
Okay, I guess where I'm going with this, in the past, it's been, you had a 5,000 gallon exempt well. That was what you were allowed. But the standard in all the studies that led, prior to Hearst, was that a single family home used up X amount of water, which was, I'm just going to say around 300 gallons a day was the accepted amount. And then for those that had a on-site septic system, like 90% was going back into the aquifer. And that's kind of been the accepted. So when we hear about exempt wells, and then we times it by 5,000, that's never taken place. It's been exempt wells probably times 300 or whatever that number is. I don't know what the number is. Yep. I just want to make sure that we use the correct information as we move forward on determining how much water is used.
Yep, I hear that.
Okay. Thank you.
CP8 is Ground Mount Urban Growth Area Zones, residential lot widths. This is being considered as part of the update to the Grand Mounts of Area Plan. And that's, it's probably not going to be in front of you until mid next year as part of that whole package for Grand Mount.
Sorry to interrupt. I want to go back to CP7 real quick and just take this opportunity to jump in on the watershed planning groups. We have the Nisqually watershed planning, so this is some of the stuff you're going to hear in November, but while we've got you, might as well just provide you this information. This is the one, the Nisqually watershed is the one that's going to go really fast, and it's got a deadline of?
So the deadline that's in state law for Nisqually is February of 2019. But the way that ecology is reading it back to us, they need a plan from us essentially at the end of the year.
For them to review. And then the second one that you guys have just recently had a discussion on last week was the Deschutes watershed, WIRA 13, correct? Mm-hmm. And we did the same process where you guys said to designate the director as the county representative. I provided that information to the Deschutes watershed working group, and they're in the process of forming that and then having the first meeting on
October 25th.
So October 25th is the first meeting for that. But the other piece on that was that they were allowing an opportunity for the commissioners to nominate individuals from the residential construction industry, the economic development, and
No, it was agriculture,
thank you.
builders, development community, and environmental.
How about well drillers or well drillers?
So water, some of those are covered in the legislation. So the legislation, ecology didn't set this up. In the legislation, it says specifically these groups must be represented. It includes counties, tribes, things like the PUD, irrigators, those things. And then it says agricultural, construction, and environmental interests. And so ecology is they're setting up this group for the Deschutes, and they will also be setting one up for Kennedy Goldsboro, which is part of our county, WIRA 14. And what they're looking to do is they don't want to just pick the interests to represent those groups. They want to get nominations from the other participants for who might be good representatives in that watershed.
I guess I'd like to make sure that, and maybe this is direction towards you, Josh, didn't we appoint you as our representative on some of these watershed issues?
Yep.
And then, you're not going to be able to do it all. You're going to have somebody there, I suppose, helping you.
Yep.
Like Allison or something. I see a little twitch going on there. Anyway, I would just like to make sure that we stick to the national standards that are in place, and if it gets out beyond what those national standards were, and those national standards are those figures I'm referring to, the 300 gallons, the 90%, that kind of thing. We've got a hydrologist that I went over that stuff with a year or so ago, before the Hearst decision was out. So I just want to make sure that we're sticking to the truth as we move forward with regulatory oversight.
Yeah, so in the terms of what those facts, figures, oversight, all that stuff, that is the details that Allison will bring forth on the November
And
briefing.
should special interest groups try to take that hostage, I would like to know what's going on. I'd like to be informed about that. If they stray from what the truth is, if they try to adjust the truth, I guess is where I'm going.
Acknowledged. So the request for the Deschutes Watershed Working Group that we had discussed last week was in terms of, are there other folks within the community that you would like to have sit on that planning group? And as we talked about last week, the deadline for those nominations to be received from the Board of County Commissioners is tomorrow. So we provided your aides with that list of name, organization, those options. And so if you wanted people other than your staff to continue, which we will engage and carry your perspectives forward as duly elected officials, but if there are other folks in the community, Ecology is asking this group to provide those names to Ecology for them to potentially place on the group as well.
By tomorrow?
As we discussed last week.
I would guess that
When was, you provided that information last week?
Yep, when you guys did when you nominated me to take the Deschutes Watershed Group, the second piece of that was, are there any folks that you'd like to nominate?
Okay.
and that's why I mentioned like well drillers
Yeah.
or the Builders Association, realtor folks, you know, those that are involved in that particular industry. I want to make sure that at some point we've got them involved in having representation there. Now that might be yourself. They might want to put somebody there. Just because the state comes out with a deadline date, I don't think we're married to that. I mean, we come up with a group that wants to sit in on this. I think they're going to all be open to the public, and we can endorse that person or that group at some point down the road.
Well, and what I'd offered also is if you have names of individuals that meet the three different groups, we'd be happy to try and find that contact information as well.
Yeah, I don't have that for you for tomorrow. I know we're going to some kind of a realty event today at lunch. I can't even tell you what it is.
The EDC.
Something with the
Real estate
EDC.
forum.
All right.
And I'm hoping that those folks are also, have been made aware.
You have a question?
No.
And so
Okay.
we've stretched Watershed, but I just add one more thing. The next basin coming up is the Chehalis Basin Planning Group. And that one has a representative currently, but also we can staff that as well. So I think we are in the process of moving forward on that, but I want to make sure that that one's on your radar as well. Like we said, this 1,500 hours, it adds up because we have 5 different watersheds, so it's a lot of working groups.
Is there any way that we can coordinate we already have a flood authority on the Chehalis, for an example, that we participate in. I believe a state overseeing operation from Ecology. I would hope that we're going to try and coordinate some of our activities for efficiencies where we already have a body overseeing something that maybe we add something to it. But from my perspective, let's try to be as cost effective and as efficient as we can be.
What else you got?
So then the next one is mineral lands, CP9. And other things.
So we are also working on that, and as part of the development code updates that are associated with the mineral lands update, we're looking at, so when you have a resource use that comes in, it's the distance around that other people get notified, and also when they have a use that goes in, that they are notified, potentially if you're in long-term forestry or long-term agriculture or mineral lands, that you're notified that you're in that area and that there might be these kinds of resource activities happening around you. So we have had a lot of some discussion with our stakeholder group about this issue. What is the appropriate distance to be notified? And so that will be coming in front of you as part of that package.
I don't think, to me, the notification process, I don't care, the more the merrier in that regard.
Yep.
It's been the setback issue as determining what is a forest land, what is a preserve.
What's a park?
What's a park? Is 1,000 feet right from everything? Well, that depends on what we determine the definition is, I suppose, so. I guess we've got that all sent back maybe to planning.
Yeah, and we've made a lot of progress with our stakeholder group working with that. We've met a couple of times, discussed all those issues. We've looked thoroughly at the parks issue, and we have a follow-up briefing that also was scheduled for you in October, but was bounced back to November. So you'll be hearing more about that in the future.
And the planning commission is looking at something?
They will be, yeah.
Okay, good, thank you.
Go for it, CP10.
And then the forest lands conversion ordinance, I'm not totally sure we're going to get to this one as part of the comp plan update. This is a little more complicated than I think we've got the bandwidth for this round.
And then to the interjurisdictional joint planning requests.
You want those?
So the first item you see on there is an impact fee for North Thurston School District. When we first passed impact fees back in 2012, we did poll all the school districts in North Thurston. At that time, it opted not to do it. The city of Lacey is already charging impact fees for North Thurston. At least that's my understanding. It could be wrong. And so the North Thurston requests that the county also charges that same impact fee out in the unincorporated area.
So thank you for that specifically. I'd back up just a little bit. This is when you had the briefing with other jurisdictions and the folks that came in and spoke with you about the things that would be important to those different groups, governmental agencies as well as the school district, to align our codes and ordinances with what they're engaged in as well. So sorry for that.
Yeah, I was going to say that for the next three, but yeah, that's absolutely true. So as part of our joint planning agreements we have with the cities, and Allison mentioned this with the joint plan updates, we need to go through our urban growth area codes to see what changes have taken place in the city codes and see if the county commissioners would like to adopt those changes as well. Allison indicated you're the final say on that. Historically, the county has not always adopted every policy and code change the cities have done. So,
Are we depending on those municipalities to kind of work with us and approach, rather than us try to chase stuff down? I'm trying to put the workload actually on them more so than on our county staff, because that's who we're benefiting as the municipality.
So if you remember at that briefing, we had staff members from the three municipalities in attendance, and all three of them had indicated a willingness to bear the brunt of taking these things forward. And of course, county staff does have to be involved because we have to review what they're putting forward to see if it fits what your needs and your goals are.
Thank you.
Remind me again, when's the last time that we updated those joint?
The last major update was before 2005, and I know that some of them have actually been longer than that. So we haven't always kept pace with what the cities have been able to do due to staffing issues and funding and other priorities for the board. So it's been quite a while for some items.
I guess the reason I'm asking that question is I'm trying to save staff hours when we prioritize here as much as we can. I mean, I don't know how long it takes you to do whatever you're doing, but I'm going by the figures that you've laid out here. And like you've got, 500 hours plus to deal with that. Well, I want to put the onus on the municipality and lighten your load as much as possible. And the same way with that amend the forest conservation ordinance or forest lands conservation stuff. I see 300 hours there. Have we got a problem that we need to address? And if so, we can set a priority based on that. But those are a lot. They take those two issues, you got 500 hours right there. And I'd like to see that we're putting those 500 hours towards the board's priorities.
Absolutely, and I did want to add one thing. Allison did make some updates when she did the LID code update. She plucked some of the low-hanging fruit, if I'm not mistaken, on some of the zoning ordinance elements and brought them forward to the board back at the end of 2016. So it's really reassessing what we adopted then and seeing what our other needs are. But the goal, as we stated to you at that briefing, was to put the onus on the cities to give us their list of changes that we need to look at with them, and then to put that brunt on them to do the work.
Okay, I mean, and as you assign those hours, I mean, like the 300 for forest, I mean, I know we're bumping back there, but is there a problem that we aren't hearing about that we need to address? And because of that, we need to assign so many hours versus you may be working on something of a higher priority, that's all.
Well, amending the forest land conversion ordinance has been on the docket for quite some time, and it's always been a lower priority, but there are issues with it, and I'm not fully conversant with all those issues. That would be a Mike Kane or Cindy Wilson question on that, but I do know that there are issues with it. And it will take a significant amount of time to
Nothing
address
right off
those.
the top of your head.
No.
It's- Okay.
No, that's why it's the last one on the list.
Mhm.
We're probably not gonna do it.
So what you say the priority, those are the priorities, to use it out.
Right, yeah. But I just want to make sure we're not burning up 300 hours unnecessarily, because we do have the priority.
Hopefully we don't do unnecessary work.
Well, okay.
Let it go. We're gonna move on. What else?
Yeah.
One last update on the comp plan amendment, and let me take you back to maybe a couple months when we brought in front of you, the Department of Commerce. They have have put the county out of compliance,
Yeah.
and they created a table unbeknown to the county, is with this out of compliance. As a result of that small table, a grant from the Department of Ecology was not given to the county because that is tied to being in compliance with the code amendment. So also you may recall, you had a conversation with, an executive session with our attorneys, and we filed a litigation against Commerce. The result of that has resulted in a very positive outcome. We have come to an agreement with the Department of Commerce, and we're really, everything what we ask is being given to the county. So no longer is an issue. And I'd like to really do one additional information, but I'd really like to praise Josh, Allison, and Travis. They went and met with all the Department of Commerce attorneys and staff, and I believe the outcome is positive for the county.
Yeah, we're very close to completion. We have, in terms of a concept of settlement, we're in agreement that an update to the table to take the words out of compliance off of that table is part of the discussion. And it was, it was a kind of a vernacular. So people use words in different ways, right? And so what we had explored was that Commerce was using the word compliance in terms of the way that they were reading the legislation for timing, and that Ecology was reading the word compliance in a completely different manner. And they were applying their two different standards to the same word. And so Commerce understood that the word compliance was an issue and have worked to mitigate that.
Are you done? Yeah. So is it solved, or is there a follow-up?
We're very
90%.
close, because the settlement agreement is almost done.
Is there any way to go back in the other direction, or we're moving forward to the touchdown?
I think we're on the red zone, and I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
the touchdown is upon us.
Okay.
We're gonna run it in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
I guess my concern is, as they decided to take
No
that
passing.
action, there were 90 other jurisdictions that were in the same situation that we're in. 90 other jurisdictions around the state. How did we end up being selected?
Oh, you know how.
Yeah, I do know how, but did you come to any actual?
They're not gonna say
This is
that.
how, this is.
That's not
how
for them.
This happened.
That's
It
not
is
for them to
important.
answer. That's not for them to
That
answer.
was not part of
No.
the process. The process that we had in front of us was to make sure that we resolve the issue.
Well, my
That's all we
concern
need.
is they might come back. on
You
us.
can go
That's-
dissolve
that's
that. They're not going to solve that.
Okay.
If you want to take that up, that's not a
The mission was
problem.
not to ask as to how they came to that conclusion.
We'll have to solve that. That's not their job.
Okay, good enough.
Staff has appreciated the opportunity to be
Same
proactive.
one?
Hang on.
Success.
32 seconds to tell him the same thing you just told him, so he has the verbal.
Just to take you back, Commissioner Hutchins.
32
maybe a
seconds.
couple months ago, when we brought in front of you the issue the Department of Commerce showed up on a table, the county was out of compliance. And
Oh, yeah.
As a result of that, we filed litigation against the Department of Commerce. And the result of that, it was a negotiation, and we're finalizing the settlement agreement where the county has been successful achieving what we needed.
On the
to
2-yard
achieve.
line,
So
though,
we
not
Yeah.
have
Okay.
Still got a little bit
we
more.
have resolved the issue, as far as I'm concerned. Commissioner.
Good, thank you.
Blake, this is where are we on the touchdown? So we're in the red zone, and I believe the touchdown is coming.
All right.
Beautiful, thank you. That's good, important. That's important stuff.
No passing.
Yeah, don't pass it. No, gosh, no.
Marshawn.
Uh-huh.
Marshawn.
Yeah, Marshawn. Put a Marshawn in there.
Oh, it makes me twitch.
I love it.
Roadside.
That's exactly it. Say it again.
So we
All right,
appreciate,
what else?
so we appreciate the opportunity to give a big, full picture, but we've taken an hour on the first bullet. So you tell us how you'd like us to proceed.
No, we want to go down this agenda. What's
It's important
next?
stuff.
HCP update.
Yep, that's where we're moving to.
Yeah, you guys, we're gonna do pervious surface in just a minute too. You can hang around. Or
You can do either
come
one
back.
now.
Either way, it's totally your call.
You do either
Totally
one
your
now.
call. But let's do HCP. I think this
Just
was.
let Christina know she's standing at the door.
Oh, come on in, Christina.
No,
Chris?
she walked away.
I'll go get her. You want me to?
Sure, that's fine. I think we can go pretty quick on this because we're still kind of in from the last time that we talked, in a bit of a holding pattern. You guys, last time we engaged with you on this topic, we had the completed draft of the HCP turned into U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We met with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They said, can we do technical meetings on some of the things that we're not sure about? I brought that information to the commissioners. You said, yeah, I'd go forth on technical meetings. We were able to finally schedule that technical first meeting on October 3rd. So once we have that meeting, we'll have a little more, I think, stuff to talk about in those items. But one of the things you asked me in that last conversation too was what are the specific discussion points that the U.S. Fish has with the county? And so one of the things that
In the sense of technical.
yeah, exactly, yeah. And so I can just run through those real quick to know what they're going to be talking about. Number one is what's guild construction. So what are the animals in the guild?
Oh, that kind of good. Okay,
Right.
good.
Species breakout and the effect to overall impact determination. Implementation and mitigation assessment per species. It's one.
Can you say that again?
Yeah,
Exactly.
please.
So what are the
Slower,
animals? What
slower.
are the animals in the different guilds, and how are they being mitigated for? So that was the concept of having all of the animals, and then a chart of how we're going to take care of them.
Okay, so
I'll
say what's
the-
on the paper again.
I'll say the technical stuff.
Slower.
Yep. Ready?
Not
Yeah,
southern
I'm
slower,
ready.
just slower.
Guild construction and use. So this is the species breakout
Guild
and the
construction
effect
and use.
to overall impact determination, implementation, and mitigation assessment per species.
Okay.
So here are your animals.
I'll just go with guild construction.
Here's the
use.
stuff
That's
you're
good.
going to do for them and break it out.
Okay, that's
Is that
fair.
the 14 species or the 4 species?
No,
Chris Chapeau from CP8.
No, that's,
12,
that's,
it's not 14.
depends on how you want to look at it.
Yeah. How we want to look at
I think
it.
it was 14.
And all
Well,
species,
right,
all activities.
right. So, because the one species is broken into 3 subspecies, it's actually 14 that we have to look at specifically. But because they overlap each other in habitat, we group them together. So all of the Mazama pocket gopher are grouped together.
that's a guild.
And that is a guild. So that is guild 1. All of the butterflies overlap each other as far as the habitat is concerned. So that is guild 2. The lark and the Oregon Vesper sparrow overlap each other as far as the habitat is concerned, so that is Guild 3. Then we've got the oak habitat, which is Guild 4, and then the Oregon spotted frog. It's Guild 5, but it's kind of by itself.
Okay.
And so that's the first discussion is we think we can say, here's the guild, these are the gophers, here's what we're going to do. The question that they've said is, will you break those out and specifically tell us for each one of those subspecies within that guild what you're going to do? And that's the conversation we're going to have.
I have a comment. Hang on, Gary. So guild, no guild, whatever, is the technical piece, are there like line items 1 through 9 or 9, 10? Is it, or just the package? How is it laid out as far as the technical conversations is what I'm asking? Is it 10 points of talking or the discussion? I don't understand the framework of the technical discussion. How's it framed? So here, let me try one more time. Hang on a second. If it's guild, that's fine. I'll take it. And it's in the package of the technical things. I just don't want anything else. I don't want to nickel and dime me for, oh, I forgot to tell you about the non-guild of the world, the blue-colored guilds of the world, the red-colored guilds of the world. And we kept going on and pulling these strings apart. And whatever it is up front, lay it all out, Mr. U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Mrs. U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and we'll work that, but you're not going to add more and play the game of pushing the can down the
Mission
road.
creep.
Yeah,
Definitely.
whatever. So
But
I
with
will
that-
vehemently be opposed to that. So I'm
Understood.
just telling you right
Who
now.
is Mr. and Mrs. U.S. Fish? We're not dealing with the folks that have come to the table here. We're dealing with different.
Now, those species experts,
So let me answer the first question first.
Yeah.
That was heard in the last conversation that we had with the commissioners and was relayed directly to U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Give us the list of
Right.
items. We're not going to revisit a list.
Nope.
We want the full list up front, if
Right
at
up
all
front.
possible.
Yep.
And so that's what this is. Chris has in here a note that these items will have a trickle effect on
I
other
got that.
pieces of the
Sure,
document.
sure.
But that we want the full scope of the universe of the things that U.S. Fish doesn't
Right.
either agree with or understand
Right.
up front.
And it cannot be 1,000 things. I want the top 5,
that's-
10, whatever number that is.
And it's 6. It's the list of
Okay,
6.
6 is a
that
good
we
number. I got it. Sure. I can deal with
Chris,
that.
you wanted to add something?
And then in terms of the question that Commissioner Hutchings asked, then who's at the table, the actual people, please feel free to provide that information.
sure. That's going to be technical staff with U.S. Fish and potentially WDFW, because some of the species that we have listed in our HCP are PHS species, so they've got the technical experts over at WDFW, so it's going to be the species experts that will be
Fine.
And what is PHS?
priority habitat species.
Okay.
Good, that's good.
That's all good. I just,
Yeah,
it takes a little for me to absorb it.
no, totally.
Gary has a question.
Sorry.
When you mentioned those guilds, some of those are listed and some aren't, and some are potentially to be listed. Is that correct?
So the 4 plus whatever number he's trying to get to, is it 12 or 14? What's the total number?
Okay, so if you're looking at it from a species perspective, instead of breaking them out, you're looking at 12 species. And yes, there are,
If you split them out, there's 14? Is
yes,
that how it is?
because you've got to split the,
Oh, okay.
So we're both right.
Ah,
exactly.
That's rare.
Yes, it just depends on how you want to look at it. Yes, so it's 12 species, looking at it from a species level. And yes, some of them are federally listed, some of them are state listed, some of them have such close habitat proximity and are species of special concern that we have joined them into our HCP because we want to make sure that we don't have additional listed species in the future. And if we can take care of them all at once without adding any additional work or dollars to it, it makes it easier for us in the future.
Can I use maybe an example?
Sure.
Layman's position maybe
Sure.
on this. So say the Oregon spotted frog is one of the critters we're working with, right, that we need to protect. But there could be 2 or 3 other species of frog that will benefit from what we're doing. And you're going to list those on there just to show that they benefit, right? Or could benefit.
In general terms.
In general,
Yeah,
yes, in general terms.
Not that it's designated for them.
Right.
But hopefully, as we put this whole package together, it's going to protect a lot of area and a lot of different species that some may be close to some type of a listing and some are not.
Exactly,
Is that right? Okay.
yes.
And I think for the record, the 12 and 14 can get confusing. So it's just so we say it out loud, it's 12 when you say just Mazama pocket gophers. It expands, you add 2 more when you say Mazama pocket gopher, the Olympia species, Mazama pocket gopher, the Yelm species, and Mazama pocket gopher, help me, go for it, what's the third one? She tested
Roy.
it.
Rochester one.
The Tamuli,
Tenino.
the Tenino,
Yeah,
Tenino.
yeah, Yelm, Mensis, Olympia, Tenino.
Tamuli.
So that's what, you had 2 to get to the 14,
Sure, I got
just
that.
for the record.
I understand that.
That was a good one, Chris, thank you.
So I have another question.
Yes, sir.
Has there been any discussion about the recovery number and the delisting criteria? Because that was very well spelled out
Yeah.
through the director, local director, that was going to happen, but I haven't seen anything in language that would indicate
Talk
that.
about the recovery plan. Yeah.
And so in terms of, so yes, but in terms of the HCP conversation the technical staff are having, that's not part of the.
Right now, but I just want to make sure that that doesn't fall off the table as far as,
No, and we have a commitment in the last letter that we received from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for them to provide that information for one of those subspecies by at least a draft by the end of this year.
right, because there was my words, not his, but I remember being in the conversation, a promise that it would be open to the public to be able to have input on that, and I want to make sure that happens. Whenever it happens, I know it's process, but I don't want to lose that.
Sure.
Does that make, did I?
Yeah, no,
Okay,
totally.
because,
And I've had that conversation with US Fish, so.
okay, good. Perfect.
Seems to me the fish, U.S. Fish, also, they basically, with your HCP or any HCP, they want to ensure that we have the availability, or the ability to protect the species. We have the means or funding to do that. I forget what the third tier was. Are they questioning any of those other issues?
So let me run through the list real quick
All right,
and see
thank
if
you.
those hit those items. So number 2 is clarify incidental take of covered activities. Number 3 is mitigation strategy. How are you going to take care of them? Number 4 is the 10% methodology that the commissioners had worked on. Number 5 is the site standards by species. So complete review and refine the habitat quantification tools. And then number 6 is the funding plan discussion. How are you going to pay for it? So those are the six items that the technical review team will be looking at
They're looking at all
starting
that. Okay,
October
good.
3rd.
Okay,
I
thank you.
do have a comment on the funding position.
Yeah.
Okay, we determined, I say we, the legal counsel, determined that there is no federal law that says that you can't use any federal money. There's a federal policy through Department of Interior that says you can't partner with federal money. I'm not aware of any state law that says you cannot use state money. And so my question is, in our HCP, we refer to specifically with no utilization of state or federal money. But I don't want to be locked in on that when the feds change their policy or the state changes their policy. Just say that was to happen so that we're not, if there's some legal ability for them to put that restriction in place, I would like that to be referred
I
to.
believe,
I believe we added language to
We did.
to have the flexibility. When we reviewed the final draft of the
Oh,
HCP,
okay,
we
okay,
added the
good.
language
We
to provide that
Just right up front.
yep.
Yeah.
But it's in there now?
Yes,
Yeah.
so
Okay,
that
good.
comment was provided by Commissioner Edwards while we were in the pre-draft.
Okay.
Yep.
And then we made that.
It's like paragraph 3 or something like that.
adjustment.
Good. That's good, that's
Good, thank
good
you.
thinking.
And again, part of the conversation, we'll continue to say, we're going to try and utilize the funding sources that we're going to go after, so.
And I guess just one other thing as we move forward, everything that's been forced upon us, I suppose, through this process is the minimum that we need to do to protect the particular species. I would advocate that through partnering and other avenues, we can do much more than the minimum if we're allowed to do so.
Oh, yeah.
And it
Well, it
actually
needs to
won't
be.
cost us any more, and it would be beneficial to the species. So let's not focus on the minimum we can get by with. Let's always be looking to try to do the best job that we possibly can for the future.
Understood. Yeah, and I think that the board gave direction, just, I understand that part of it, but also in terms of, the board said, draft an HCP that covers all species, all activities, so expansive. That's the HCP update, unless there's any other questions on that.
All right. Do you need a minute break?
Not now. I mean, no, sir.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris, for your good work.
Yes.
So I think just pervious surface, and then we'll be done, take a break, and then come back, okay?
Okay, so this one's gonna be Jeremy as well on pervious surface limits. Do you wanna
This is more Gary for anything.
maybe start with a little bit
I
of the
don't
background?
think it's just more.
Most for everybody, but I
It
mean.
is, right.
You're pervious surface.
Yeah, pervious surface, yeah.
Well, so maybe we do back up a little bit on this question on RSR.
So first to start off, so at the end of December 2016, Board of County Commissioners at the time updated our low-impact development and stormwater requirements. Since that time, we've been assessing the ordinance and finding errors, omissions, and issues with it on the implementation side of it. One of those issues, just to back up a little bit, you were talking about the RTA amendment or pervious soil amendment in the Tumwater UGA, and that was one we accomplished in the spring of 2017, shortly after we'd adopted the final ID code, and that's where we amended the Tumwater code for the residential sensitive resource zoning district to be consistent with Tumwater, and that was to address direct citizen concerns about what was adopted in the winter of 2016.
So Commissioner Blake, we just jumped back to your question.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
was the RC what?
It was the RSR, Residential
RSR,
Sensitive
that's what it was.
Resource,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it was Joanna.
So that was
yeah.
on the one I forgot that's not on here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
And so say again when that was accomplished.
That
Yeah,
was
I heard.
accomplished in the spring of 2017, I believe.
And so we changed from what percentage to what percentage to make it match with Tumwater?
So in that amendment, it was actually scaled by the parcel size, because the parcel sizes vary in that zoning district. And that zoning district was really designed to be applied in areas where you have sensitive resources. So the Percival Creek Watershed is one of those, and actually it's the main one where that's used in the unincorporated county islands in the Tumwater UGA. And so it's scaled based on that. I don't recall the specific figures for each size of lot, but it really is targeted towards quarter acre and on up to 5 acre and more. And then Tumwater and the county both adopted the same table.
Right on.
But you don't know the percentage at that point?
I don't know the specifics
Okay.
offhand. I
Where-
can find those out for Vicki and send those to you.
I think what we're looking for is a less restrictive version on citizens. And I know on one particular case, a lady tried to build some kind of a barn for her daughter for a riding situation. They had a parcel of 5 acres, but they had another 40 acres with them, and they were restricted and actually were not able to do that. So they ended up putting up some temporary sheds, and it was, I think the 10% added in there came about because they classified a gravel driveway as impervious, and then everything else that went with that, the parking area is impervious, the roof is impervious, and it ended up, I think, more than 10%, which to me seems very unrealistic. And that's where I'm going with this, is trying to make it less restrictive and more realistic.
So in that particular case, we'd be happy, staff would take a look at that and explore that further.
Well, I think staff did look at it and said, well, under the current process in place today, you can't do X, whatever X was. So I need to know something about restrictions and percentages on property. I want to make sure that we change the code to stay within the compliance issues possibly, but again, going back to our philosophy of the least restrictive and still protecting the environment.
Any other update on that?
So with that one, we've had some staffing challenges this last year, so we haven't really been able to look at that this last year. As you know, Allison is actually the most conversant in it, and she's completely tied up with other projects, as is other staff right now. We had our CRS coordinator leave in the middle part of this year, and so that job transitioned over to me, and I was your code writer. And that is the community rating system review of all of our flood codes and ordinances that gives our residents a discount on their flood insurance. Just a very short nutshell on that. And so we have not been able to really look at that issue in depth over this last year. Any new staff members that go in to look at that will have to come up to speed and do all the appropriate research so they know what they're doing when they're making those changes, and to look into the stormwater regulations at the state level and our own local level, and also look at other impacts across the county when we go to work on those.
Would that be something that would be added to this?
No, we already have it on this list, I believe. That's the review low impact development standards. It was A7. Yeah.
So within A7, we would be looking at the impervious surface standards. But currently, we're at a kind of a drain on staffing, and we're hiring for those positions right now. And thank you for the approval to hire for those positions.
Yes.
Okay,
to
well,
Thank you.
accomplish the
I
goals
guess
that
what
you're
I'm asking for, we already set that as one of our higher priorities, but it looks like we didn't get anywhere at all on that.
It looks like we had to also use humans to do the other priorities that were currently being used for.
I'm not saying,
Yeah.
and that's why I
No
continue
robots. That's what we
to
invest in
harp
robots.
about
Yeah.
the number of hours that you spend on particular projects of a lower priority. That's kind of where I'm continuing to come from on that issue. But I kind of need to hear an answer from somebody that it's 10%, it's 8%, it's 27%. I mean, what is it? So we can at least adjust it. I don't want to spend a couple years studying it. There's citizens out there that feel this is a very unrealistic restriction on what they can do with their property. And I believe them.
And so that question is acknowledged, and we'll definitely look to provide you that answer. And we recognize that our staff hours are listed here for you to see, but what's not listed here are also a number of the other priorities that come up on a regular basis that our staff works to accomplish the goals of the commission and leadership as well. So just recognize that while we say that these are the hours for these topics, this isn't the whole universe of topics that all of our staff is engaged in.
No, I realize that.
And that this question on impervious service has been asked repeatedly. We were working to fill that staff position to provide you a full and complete answer. Our goal is to not shoot from the hip. We'd like to have actual data and then provide a solution. So not just coming to the commissioners with, here's the problem, we'd also like to have a full and complete picture on how to solve it.
Okay, but let's be realistic about that. If we've
Indeed.
got the exact most restrictive position put in place in the fall of 2016, we've got the most restrictive following state regulatory stuff. We all know we don't want to be the most restrictive anymore. So that shooting from the hip, I'm not going to call it shooting from the hip. Now, if we try to eliminate it, impervious regulation, I suppose that'd be shooting from the hip. But I certainly think we can reach some kind of a halfway point without putting a zillion hours in just kind of spinning our wheels.
So let me clarify just real quick. When I say shoot from the hip, I mean providing a percentage right now in this meeting. I'd like
No,
for us to be able
okay,
to
that's fine.
Go back and,
I want to make sure that is still, we
He's
made
going
it-
back to your sheriff days. that's
we
what it
made our
was.
number 3 priority here. I'd like to make darn sure we're still focused that that's an issue, because it's a big issue to rural America.
All right.
So,
I think they got it. What else?
And I think
You
the
have anything?
staff and myself have heard the direction of the board. The changing a number is not just changing the number, it's making
Can't
sure
just
that
delete
the code aligns with those changes, and that is the work associated with
There's your
hours.
$1,500 right there.
Well-
With all due respect, it's not like we can go just on one page and change it from 10 to 15, whatever percentage it is.
Yeah, and be
It's
done.
making sure that the code itself supports those changes to make sure that the citizens don't get confused.
okay, well, we did it for Tumwater.
Well, that's
It's an isolated
Very-
UGA issue. That was in the UGA of Tumwater.
you talking about the RSA?
RSR, yes, sir.
Sorry.
And I want to duplicate that. We already did something there that's pretty darn close to what we're probably needing to do now.
It's not a cookie cutter
and
solution.
that topic was led by Tumwater.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, well, take their study and utilize that. Let's not always reinvent the wheel. We seem to study ourselves to death, and the citizens are the ones out there trying to figure out a way around the regulatory process that are too, in this case, too restrictive, because what was imposed in the fall of 2016 was the most restrictive possible. I don't think that's where we want to be. We want to be within the least restrictive possible and still protect the environment.
Loud and clear.
Okay.
Lima Charlie.
With Charlie, loud and clear.
Yep. All right, what else?
That's our topics, unless there's other questions for us.
I just have one more follow-up
Yes, sir.
on the Department of Commerce and the comprehensive plan compliant, non-compliant thing. Is it on their taken off of their website or clear, or is it still there and it's pending?
It definitely is pending. I'll see. I'm not sure if it's off of their website, and that's
Because
a
I
good
think
question.
we've had the chance to review the revised table. already.
They've updated the website.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
We haven't completed the
Yeah.
settlement.
Can we take that extra little step and double, triple
Most
trip?
definitely.
All those other 90 jurisdictions, are they all listed as well?
They will all benefit from the work that we have put in on this.
Yeah, we're bailing them out, you might say, right?
Phone calls saying.
Saying thank you?
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
To Wausau.
All right, let's take a
Do you
10-minute
need more
break.
staff?
And we're in the process of that. So we'll be bringing on another staff member the next week And we've got other requests to fill the positions to get to the topics that have been requested.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
But that won't relieve the pressure off of you guys, Jeremy, Allison?
We'll always have pressure, and we
Yeah.
appreciate the opportunity for success.
Always more work to do.
Thank you.
Take a 12-minute break. Okay, so we're back here for the planning session, and we're on agenda item number 4, 5, and 6. And I'm not sure which one's a priority, so we can take any one of the remaining 3. And so the WASAC legislative process, was Mr. Johnson in here yesterday?
Johnson.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can
That
you
was
just,
a very good briefing
can you
yesterday.
just kind of recap that for a second, and then we can see where we want to go with this? Because this is just kind of open air discussion on this one.
Yeah,
so.
for the next 3 items is just open conversation.
Yeah.
Nothing really to make a decision or provide an update. It's just to continue the conversation in terms of the road donations to the Hill Drive. The WASAC legislative briefing yesterday was very good. They presented with their top 4 priorities. One is the financial, what is it, public health?
Foundations of public.
Foundation of public
Yes,
health,
that's
thank
that.
you. The other one was the public defense. Also.
Indigent defense, uh-huh.
The other 2.
I have it on my desk.
Yeah,
Oh, you have it.
You have it.
Ta-da!
I was going to get mine. You're awesome.
It was really a good briefing.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah.
Eric's a great guy. I mean,
Well, and
So,
Scott was here too, the commissioner from Lincoln County.
Lincoln County.
So it was the adequate funding for trial court indigent defense, the Foundation of Public Health Services, the fish barrier, hazard removal,
Oh, yeah.
and also opposed to any new unfunded mandates. It was good conversation. Each one of those has their own request as they see it. So let me walk you through. Related to the indigent defense, they believe they only 4% is given to local jurisdictions out of what we need.
This is huge.
Yeah, and also under the state's constitution, the state is the responsible party to provide indigent defense. So when they, from the state, give only 4%, I think the gist of this legislative agenda is they're not meeting the intent of the Constitution, their obligation from the state point of view.
And there's a few legislators that currently believe that we received 16%. Which is it's laughable. We would take it.
4 or 16 is
60.
not the right answer.
No, it's not, no. So we're hitting or asking for 100%.
Yeah, we're asking for
Because the state, many states do that, except for like 2 or 3.
so which is just about $153 million a year is what we need to actually be fully funded for indigent defense.
Statewide?
Statewide, yeah.
Okay.
Foundational public health, and there's also a request to that because at least $6 million needs to be allocated just to meet the minimum.
They bring it whole.
Bring it whole. But also the discussion that we had with WASAC, what happens in the consequences of the governor's action to start closing the
Mental health
facilities.
Yeah, Eastern and
And
Western.
start releasing individuals with mental health issues into the local jurisdictions. That continues to be something that we need to keep an eye in the future. And although it was not said yesterday, that continues to be one of my major concerns because it's going to put pressure on the jail. And as you know, they already would have been receiving a lot of pressure for the jail to provide mental health services. So that is something we need to continue to monitor.
Now, on that issue, I read an article, an op-ed piece in the Olympian yesterday, our paper of record, penned by Brad Shannon, where he gave some misinformation in the article. So I want to write a letter to the editor about that, because he said that the deinstitutionalization of the mentally ill in the state mental hospitals happened during the Reagan administration and after. But it started October 31st, 1963, when President Kennedy signed the bill to deinstitutionalize the mentally ill. and called for community mental health support centers throughout the country. And yet, 20 years later, only like 200 were built, or 400 out of 2,000. It just wasn't happening under several administrations. So it's not something that Reagan perpetuated, but all that money just sat there. So he took the rest of that money for that mental health stuff and put it into the Just Say No campaign. But it was several administrations, beginning with President Kennedy, that started that. So it was misinformation in the article.
Oh, good. So the item of the fish passage barrier removal, as you may be aware, the state Supreme Court judged against the state, and they had up to 2030 to remove all the barriers within
Good luck.
their infrastructure. That comes to a cost of close to $3 billion for the state.
With a B.
With a B. So I think the intent of this particular legislative priority is to start having a conversation to be proactive. And proactive in terms of, it's not just about removing one barrier, one culvert. It's having perhaps maybe a holistic approach that actually has to be concentrated on the habitat and how we can maximize the investment of that. As Eric stated yesterday, it really is not going to make a difference if the state fixes one of the culverts under the freeway, if upstream and down the stream we still have barriers. They're
no good at all.
By cities or counties. So having a holistic approach in how we can probably partner with the local jurisdictions, really that is the approach to this. They asked me, and we had the opportunity to highlight what the Thurston County has done and how we have taken really the lead across the state to be proactive in addressing fish barrier culverts here in the county. And explain that we have allocated $2 million in 2017, $2 million in 2018. And as a result, we're moving forward to, I think we're finalizing 5 culverts.
Did you say 2,000?
2 million.
2 million.
I'm sorry, did I say 2,000?
I thought maybe you did.
2 million in 2017, 2 million in 2018, for a total of $4 million that we're going to be fixing 5 culverts. But the investment the return to that investment is we open 7 miles of habitat.
Mm-hmm.
That is really what we need to concentrate. It's not just about the number of projects, it's the impact to the environment, which has been, from my point of view, an incredible return to that investment. As we mentioned to WASAC representatives yesterday, and also we mentioned that perhaps you, as a board, will be considering to invest at the same level on the years 2019 and 2020 as you consider the upcoming budget. But also, he really asked me the question is, so how many culverts we need to fix here in Thurston County? And we know we need to fix 190 culverts. And it's good to have that, be proactive, but really the magnitude of getting to fixing the 190 culverts resonated to us, because from their perspective, the total cost of fixing all the barriers on the county's jurisdictions is close to $500 million. And there's not enough money.
And the rate.
That's how this priority, legislative priority with the state is just, let's start having that conversation as to how that can probably be a partnership.
And at the rate of 4 or 5 a year, it would take us 40 years to get ours done. And for our faithful watchers that watch this routinely, and the BoCC meetings, there was a public comment that was made that of the millions that we are spending on fish barrier removal, that we're doing it where there's no even fish existing. So would you address that, or can you address that?
Well,
so people can see and get at least the right answer.
There is I believe I've heard that comment in a particular location, and the observations that that particular citizen did was during the summertime, when the water was low, and also there were some comments in terms of there really is no flow, on those culverts, but really that's not related to it, because when we do the work is what we call the fish window, is when the fish is not necessarily using the stream to go upstream. So that is where we need to finish that in September, and that's when we start seeing the fish runs going up the stream. So, and that's what probably what the response, I guess, to some of the comments that we have received. The observations whether we have fish in July may not represent really what the need is.
Yep.
Thank you.
So in the fourth legislative priority from WASAC is the oppose any new unfunded mandates. And it was a good conversation in terms of the definition under the state law, what really unfunded mandates mean. And hopefully we'll continue to do that. At least argue the new laws imposed on the counties without having the state to fund those new laws and regulations. Also was a brief description, a brief conversation on the potential litigation strategies that WASAC is planning to take.
That's what I want to hear.
And at this point, it was a little bit of a conversation in terms of the strategy. Eric was, as understandable, didn't want to get too much into the details of that strategy. And you can probably hear that if WASAC goes ahead and acts on that potential litigation, perhaps the reaction from some of the legislators may be contrary to what we want to achieve. And also he stated that perhaps when we go through litigation, at the end result, even if we're successful, the courts may impose some regulations we may not want to do. And he made a reference in terms of the McCurry, because when the McCurry case was going through the courts and the final decision, he put a blanket as to how the school system needs to be managed. So if we were to go through this process, do we really want to have the same standards for all the counties? And that probably will be one of the unintended consequences that he has stated on his report. That's pretty much the gist of the WASAC, unless I missed anything.
Nope.
No, it was very, very good. Very informative.
I don't know what the question is. How do we want to help WASAC amongst us three, or me going, whatever? But we can figure that out as we go along.
Right.
But there'll be more involvement with WASAC next year and the year after. So.
Yeah, I think there is from my humble perspective, I believe there is a need for you as a commissioners to be more proactive with WASAC, and because it appears to be somewhat of the misconception by the legislators. The counties have money. The counties have enough money. And the response to that was perhaps they're comparing to what they call the gold standard, which is King County. And King County, yeah, they have the property taxes and the sales tax, which they generate so much money they can go in that position. But if you compare that to Lincoln County, property tax and sales tax don't generate that much money. So the funding mechanism the counties have are outdated. They have not changed for decades. So it does not reflect the current needs of the counties. And that continues to be a struggle as to how we can overcome that perception as we look for ways to either give us the choice, give the counties the choice to have additional revenue, or just give flexibility within the current funding strategies.
Okay. Chehalis Tribe. So this is still Anderson Road.
Yep.
How about roundabouts and I don't think Moon Road is an issue at all, so it's not even a question of being an issue.
Right, so the last day we had a conversation on this. I don't know if you want me to go to the whiteboard just to
Sure,
wrap it out
sure.
again.
No.
No? I like your artwork.
Can you put the other roundabout on there too?
Is that whiteboard visible to the public? Do you know? Not. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Megan.
So for the viewing public, what I'm mapping this, and here's the Ground Mount area, I-5, Highway 12, and some of the roads associated with that. So this is all Highway 99. This is
Starbucks.
I-5
We're about getting out of my Starbucks.
north, and this is
I'm so joking.
Highway 12.
Uh-huh.
It's probably close to 6 miles. Then you have
Moon.
Moon Road. Right here you have Anderson Road, right? And I think right here is, if I'm not mistaken, is 188. And right here is where you have the casino. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a few efforts.
One more thing.
Yeah.
Can you extend Anderson
Extend.
Road out and roll it to the left to do a reverse J? Do you know what I'm talking about?
This,
Yeah, keep Anderson Road going down and make it curve to your left. No, the other way. Keep going down.
okay, but this is a
Past
little bit to the
188.
south.
Yeah, and then make it do a.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, just like that. Yeah. That's
And
important.
here's the,
Center, community center.
and some residential property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you.
And that's tribal land down there. Okay.
In Grays Harbor County.
In Grays Harbor County, that's right.
So this is 198, and I'm gonna draw this Sergeant Road, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And Sergeant Road stops short of Highway 12.
Oh, that's important too, you're right. Good call.
So there's a lot of infrastructure being planned to here.
So what color are you going to use?
And the purple.
I have to ask you a question because you brought that point up about it stops short of Highway 12. Does it stop up against the right-of-way access of the state, or is there a parcel of property between where it stops and the highway parcel?
It's just, there is not a property obstruction.
So it
It's just-
comes up against the right-of-way for the highway. Good enough. Okay.
One more tiny thing. So sorry, can you take Sergeant Road on the other side and extend the road just a little bit? Yeah, because it's, there you go. That completes the pic. There you go. I don't think it
Yeah,
ties.
it is.
Yeah, there you go. It's important, believe it or not. Yeah.
Mhm.
Here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the road network.
Right.
North.
Except it doesn't connect to Highway 12. That's all right.
So let me begin what is happening
Sure.
Yeah.
at this point.
Same thing there, that right here is a little,
Right. It's a little jog.
yeah, the road goes over like here.
That's what Well, okay, got it.
Okay. Well, it parallels it right there close.
Okay.
So, and does the same thing apply there? That corner is up against right-of-way, no parcel
No,
of private
here's,
owned?
they're private property owners.
Right up to the right-of-way. So in between that little strip, there is,
There's-
okay,
Okay?
Okay.
So, but I'm gonna get to that.
okay.
So what is happening right now is the Chehalis Tribe is gonna build improvements. It's gonna build a roundabout right here. And Commissioner Blake can certainly appreciate that roundabout.
Now I can. I used not to.
And they're gonna do some improvements on this road as well as the Sergeant Road.
Where is their new hotel?
The new hotel, what they call the Eagle One, is located right here,
It's already done.
Yeah.
okay? But they also have plans to I think it's a distillery and a destination restaurant. So they have all their plans right here. That's this Eagle One.
Just for, I'd like to know the answer, I guess. There was some type of litigation involving the Great Wolf Lodge, percentage of ownership, tax, that kind of thing, with the county some years ago.
Yeah, it was the county assessor who filed a suit against the tribe.
Okay, so,
And,
Lost.
And we lost.
yes, but does that same configuration of ownership, 51% or something, apply here, or is this solely owned by the tribe and it becomes,
No, this is, the tribe leases the land and is a partner with some of the providers. In this case, it is the Hilton chain who owns the hotel. So it's the same partnership with the, similar to the Great Wolf Lodge. I do not know the percentage split.
yeah, because I'm curious if we're gonna have any type of retail tax, there's, sales tax and such, that is going to come into the coffers or not.
It might be, but I'm not sure the extent of it.
We might need to look into that. Okay.
So this is what is happening right now. A roundabout in here, improvements 198 is Sergeant Road. And that is key for the Chehalis Drive, for the development of the Eagle One, because right now, they are restricted to access this only with right in, right out.
Is that Bud's Drive there? Is that the one?
Right in, right out.
But,
because- Because right here, in portions of all Highway 99, we have a median that doesn't allow it to turn left. So this is what is going on right now. We're gonna use another color. So what is coming up? And they're gonna use this right here. Right here. Dash line on this. And dash line on this. Okay. Let's begin with this. The state has a plan to build two roundabouts, one on Anderson Road and the other one on Moon Road. You receive a letter from the Chehalis Drive chair asking the county if we can close 198, I can't remember, which acts as the casino. As a result, the state doesn't need to build this roundabout on Moon Road. Because what is happening, the circulation of vehicles right now come down the Moon Road, take 198, it's a shortcut to the casino. By closing this, there is not a need for a roundabout, and that will be up for your consideration coming up, whether you like to agree on that. My suggestion, that's probably a good thing to do, but it will still have to respond from the board to that request. So how this whole ties to this roundabout is critical, I believe, because if the state saves money here, and I already had conversations with the state as to how they can partner to build this roundabout on Sergeant Road, which is critical infrastructure for this part of Grand Mount. So this roundabout in here, the cost is about $3.5 million. Okay. I have already touched base with a private developer. They're willing to participate on the construction of the roundabout. I have already talked to the Chehalis Tribe. They're already willing to participate on this roundabout. And I already talked to DOT. They're also willing to participate financially on this roundabout. And
Nice.
the county needs to be part of that solution as well. So this roundabout right here is a public-private partnership. It is, I will have a meeting hopefully before those parties in a single room to start determining the roles and responsibilities and the level of participation. I believe this roundabout can be implemented as soon as possible because some of the areas, although they were needing here, some right away, are owned by those private developers. They can see a benefit because as soon as this intersection is fixed, all the holdings up here will
Flourish.
flourish.
Sure.
So I see this public-private partnership as an incredible economic development
Yep.
approach. So, and I think we're primed to get that partnership going. Okay. I don't think did I miss anything?
So now we need to talk about Anderson Road.
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
So this is what is happening on the whole infrastructure deal. Now the Shell Strike has been asking for a while now donations of if the county can donate Anderson Road
Right away
Moon
that they
Road,
own.
you know, and the first ask, and I'm going to use a different color, red. The first ask by the tribe was they want the county to donate this.
Vacate the road, give it to them.
Anderson Road, Moon Road, and I think it's this one too, right? And that was, and Commissioner Blake can attest to this, probably beginning of 2015.
15, March.
When that request.
March 10th at 3:30.
So through the whole process of donation, the question came how we can ensure non-tribal citizens will have access to those roads in perpetuity. And that conversation continues, and you participated on the last meeting with the leadership from the tribe where this issue came up again. So now their request, I believe, has been, now this jogging here on the road certainly needs some safety improvements. No doubt in my mind. And the tribe is willing to do that. But the issue remains, meaning if we donate the roads, the tribe will put those roads into trust. And as soon as those roads go into trust, then the county has not have the ability to ensure the non-tribal citizens have access to that.
Where are non-tribal properties located on that J you put there?
In here, I can't remember.
You think there are some? Are there some properties
Tribal
there?
properties, yes.
Okay, but that's over in Grays Harbor County, outside of our bailiwick,
Yeah,
right?
but is access, I mean, county citizens, no uses.
I mean, that's a dead-end road though, right?
Yeah, that's a dead-end road.
Okay, so at some point, I would like to see where private property is intermingled
Yeah.
with tribal property.
So I think if you were to look just this little piece, that's something you may consider, you know, going through the process of getting into trust. They may not have a detriment effect to non-county, non-tribal members. But looking at the larger context, there's a lot of private properties, non-tribal,
Yeah, yeah.
they access those roads. And you may recall during the conversation with the leadership from the tribe was, well, just trust us.
No.
Just trust us, they, you know,
Sure.
we will not close the road. And my reaction to that is, I trust you, but the gist of this agreement will be they will serve in perpetuity beyond the players around the table.
Sure.
And that is the obligation that we as a county have to ensure that we protect the rights of non-tribal citizens and Thurston County residents to access the roads in perpetuity.
Access their own residences.
Right. So, and that's really that's where we are on the whole process.
But we talked about this at the last meeting,
Yeah.
that going beyond that trust, you know, handshake, we trust you and we trust each other. And it was proffered that they would put that into the agreement And I don't know legally what that would hold, what kind of water that would hold or level of
Yeah.
of enforcement, that they would never shut that road down.
So we have several agreements with the tribe. One when the Very Wolf Lodge was developed, one for the Eagle one. And what you've heard is we like to have this
Your umbrella is
umbrella agreement. The umbrella agreement is just,
Okay.
I love my umbrella.
I know, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Right here,
Yeah.
little handle.
Yeah, little handle.
Because really is having because this area will continue to grow.
Yep.
And this area will require the continued partnership with the Chehalis tribe. No doubt in my mind. How we can make the best out of the partnership is really hopefully this agreement. They call government to government agreement, the centennial agreement. That may not necessarily apply to the county because we're not, part of the nation. So we're in the process of drafting this umbrella agreement, and when that is in place, all those different details will be just details without getting into the legal aspects of every single agreement. So,
Romero, the roundabout on Old 99 at 198, the Starbucks roundabout, is that solely on the county then? Or is there also a private partnership in that roundabout?
it's solely on the Chehalis tribe.
Oh, the roundabout at 198 is solely Chehalis?
All this Chehalis tribe. The county is only providing oversight of the plans,
Oh, okay,
the
good, good.
construction,
All right.
and the county does not have money on those.
Then is it the first quarter next year we meet with Chehalis again, or second quarter?
We haven't scheduled that yet, but certainly,
I think that it's going to be tough to do it one more this year, but I think there is one more time this year.
This year?
One more.
I
Yeah.
have not seen, but
Aaron's
that is
got that.
already in the
Okay.
calendar, but I have not seen it.
Uh-huh.
Anyways.
Thank you.
Okay.
So what do you want to do?
Well, one question is, in past flood seasons, the Anderson Road has been closed,
Somewhere,
and they have,
somewhere here.
oh, no, you're down in here, too, here, right here,
I can't see you.
floods out.
Oh,
This, maybe before your time, I suppose. But anyway, then, this was utilized. So I don't know if they fixed that or not.
We fixed it because the recent flooding that has not affected the access to the casino.
But I don't think it was as high as in '96. I'd just like to know a little more
Yeah.
about that before we make a determination to block that off. But I don't see that this isn't much of an issue, is it, if there's no other, I don't know who, I guess I need to see who owns what before we decide. Now, like over here, this is all Grays Harbor County.
And
This is the county line right
Yeah,
here.
on half of the right-of-way in Anderson Road is Grace Harbor County.
Have they talked with Grays Harbor County?
Yes, they have.
They're waiting on
Yeah.
us.
And they're waiting for what Thurston County is going to do.
We're taking first move.
Okay, so at least are we communicating with Grays Harbor as well? Our public works
Not
people?
really.
and
They're
all?
just, whatever we do, they're going to do.
Okay. So is this the piece that's in question? If we block this now, they can do their own roundabout and stuff here, right? Where you've got this for a turnaround, that's all it is.
It's just a roundabout.
Just a turnaround. And, but how can we give this up and guarantee that these
So
properties?
that is the.
I mean, that's kind of an unreasonable ask on their
Well,
part.
that was the
a
initial
degree.
ask,
Right.
but I think they have.
Well, the
narrowed
whole-
down.
Since then, I've
Yeah,
talked
the
to Jeff
initial was the
Warnke,
whole thing here.
Gary.
Initially, right?
Since then, I've had a coffee with Jeff Warnke. And the Moon Road, it does not have to be a priority of discussion now or in the future, as long as we could talk about Anderson Road. That's the whole point of bringing this up today, is to be able to update you that. They're willing to forego any serious conversation. It's still a serious issue for them. I'm not saying it's not, but a serious discussion between us and them about Moon Road, so long as we could get to some resolution, whether good or bad, about Anderson Road here, either at the end of this year or definitely next year, so they can move forward. Whether we are pro or con of Anderson
Okay.
Road, at least come to a conclusion
Well,
of that. So that's what they're looking for.
I'm not going to be able to come to that conclusion today.
No, not
without-
today.
No.
Nobody said today.
Okay, well,
I'm not asking to make a decision today, this is just a
Okay.
conversation.
yeah, I need to know those, I need a real map with property designations of, this is tribal, this is private, who owns it, the parcels, the size. Might be such a thing, maybe they could buy some of those properties out and then it wouldn't be an issue or something, I don't know.
They're actively buying a lot of parcels.
I know, yeah. But I think they're buying where they can put gas stations more than anything else right now.
All right.
Thank you for that.
Have you seen the actual plan here as far as,
How did they do
you
that?
know, this is going to be retail?
Yeah.
But I need to know, is this going to be tribal?
It's in tribal land.
I know, but does it benefit the citizens of Thurston County through taxes developed there? What's going on in some jurisdictions on straight tribal land that's not regulated by the government? Gas stations, for an example, are being placed in there. Where's that gas tax going? Where's the sales tax going? Those are issues that we need to be at least aware of. I'm not even saying that we can make a effect one way or the other, but I think we're obligated to have all the facts before we make a public policy decision.
What is all the facts?
Everything. Who owns what?
You can't-
What the tax rolls are, what the legal obligations are, restricted access, a lot of different things that come into play.
All right. As long as we get it all up front, so we know.
Again, I'm not asking you to make a decision today.
No,
No,
I'm
good.
just bringing it back up the latest
Well,
information.
once in a while, we only get a few minutes to make a decision, it seems like here, and so I'm always gun shy about that.
All right. Anything else, Commissioner Adams? You got anything?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
That's all just one issue, though.
Sure.
And it's not, I don't think it's so much BoCC as it is BOH. And that is the needle exchange. There's
Program,
the program itself. And
but not safe zones.
not safe
Not
sites.
injection
No, not
sites.
injection sites, no. But there's a lot of point, counterpoint information that's out there, even current scholarly articles that suggest that that even though that might be, we can show here locally that we're reducing HIV, AIDS, hepatitis by doing this, that we're actually, and we might be, I guess there's contention as to whether we're converting users and addicts by referring them on at the same time we're giving them a needle, here's a pamphlet, whether that's effective or not, or whether we're enabling drug use and not focusing as much on prevention and rehabilitation as we should be. And we might be exacerbating the problem, not we, Thurston County, but around the country where there are needle exchange programs, where we're exacerbating the problem of drug addiction and needles, I'll use the example, in the urban areas. And that money that we're spending on that program could be spent elsewhere. But also now the fact it's not just needle exchange, it's other drug paraphernalia that we're handing out. And we're not even adhering, locally, we're not even adhering to the policy of 1 for 1. But I can go get a bunch of needles and hand them to my friends. And so I want to really look at that. It's a health and social policy issue that's touchy. And it has pros and cons on both sides. I just want more information to make sure we're doing something that's ethically and medically right and helpful and healthy.
Health-wise, yeah. You're right, because if it's not getting better health, then we're defeating.
So when you're saying you need more information, what type of information would you like to see on the needle exchange program?
I want to know what the current, I know we had this last year, what the current expense is, what are we spending on the program? Because I think last we talked, I was asking, well, it was supposed to be a mobile needle exchange, and we didn't have the mobile. And so I don't know if they're doing the mobile now and to what extent it is moving around.
They have.
Would
So-
you like to have a briefing on the needle exchange?
I would love to have one, yes, and I would like to have a briefing on how many we're handing out, how many we're getting back. And I don't think there's any hard stats, but anecdotal stats of how many needles are still being found around parks and alleys and businesses in and around the urban areas, and even in the county area, rural area, and what the costs are. But I'd love to have Department of Health or the needle exchange program director come in with the point counterpoint. Although I'm going to do my own research, but I just don't want to be inundated with.
Health will be coming here. Shelley and her
Yeah.
staff will be coming and give you a
Jeannie.
briefing.
But I don't want it just a one-sided, here's all the reasons why we're doing it, here you go. Here's all the reasons why we're doing it, but here's the opposites, here's the other side of the issue when it comes to
Positive and negative.
science. Yeah, I want them to do some research as well, not just all the, and I don't mean this derogatorily, it's going to sound like it though, not just the feel-good stuff to justify why we're doing it, but I want them to come in and say, we've examined the other side of the issue, the harmful effects of a needle exchange, and or possible harmful effects of the needle exchange and or other paraphernalia that we're giving out for free, and balance that. I want them to come in with an analyzed, balanced approach to the entire issue. It's a huge issue, and I don't know if we're making it worse for Olympia or not.
Maybe we have to have a deposit or something. You get $1 for each needle you turn in or something, because I know over at the Children's Museum, they're really facing some issues down there.
Terrible issues, yeah.
And
And a lot,
Yeah, a lot, and the Children's Museum, but if we look at children as our most precious asset, for an example, are we exposing them to hazard that we don't have to because we're not addressing an issue properly or administrating an
And
issue
equally as
properly?
critical as that is Hands-On Child Museum. Their young staff, their volunteer staff, are being asked to go out and pick up needles and such out in the area before the public comes in with kids, and it's reprehensible.
And clean up other stuff.
So I just want the whole issue examined. I'll do my examination and researching articles, but I want them to come in, them being public health. Here's the pros and the cons. We've done some of this research as well. Let's have a meaningful discussion on it.
What's the name of that place?
Which one?
Not Hands of Child.
Oh, no, it's the Hands-On Child Museum,
Is it?
HOCM.
Hands-on museum.
Oh, okay.
Children's hands-on museum.
Children's Hands-On Museum. That's it.
I guess
Hands-on
I would
children.
like
Not
to,
Hands-On Children. No, I'm sorry. You got me mixed up.
Children's hands-on museum.
Yeah, yes. Thank you.
I would like to,
Say it again.
Hands-on Children's Museum.
It is HOCM,
Oh, wow.
Hands-On
Okay.
Children Museum.
All right. That's their title, not mine. I'm just curious.
Thank you.
I guess I would like to reemphasize what the commissioner said, and that is that I'd like to have staff be very knowledgeable when they come in about arguments for and against, and I'd like to hear them all. I mean, not only could we ask other people and do some of our own research, but I would like to make sure that staff comes in here not just as an advocate for the program, but with all sides of the story. And
I should have said that. Oh, yeah, I did.
yeah, you did. You said something very much like that. That
You're just
they-
repeating me. You're repeating what
Yeah,
he said.
I'm kind of.
Before Thanksgiving, have the briefing.
Yeah.
So
But I mean, I don't want to have to go out. I guess
Thank you.
my hands are full doing other things. I don't want to do my own research, but I'm going to depend on staff to really do a good job about, well, this works here, they found out over here it doesn't work, or whatever it is, so that we get a true story
Yeah,
of
and
all the facts.
From my point of view is what is the objective? What is the objective of the program? And what is the objective of any program, right? So, and on the needle exchange program, the objective is public health.
Yes.
Right. And not necessarily the objective is.
Excuse me for 1 second. Gary Warnick for Hutch, he says it's extremely important. He needs you to come out of your meeting.
Okay.
The corner.
Yeah.
Go ahead, I'm listening.
So the So my understanding is about the objective of a particular program. And the needle exchange program is a public health objective, has a public health objective. If the objective needs to be changed, it actually is a treatment
Or prevention.
or prevention, the objective changes. And that's how, we probably need to approach this briefly.
Do you have any idea of where there's maybe a free injection site or that kind of an issue argument going on out of King County right now? And I think there was an initiative attempted that was stopped by a judge, and now that issue is in front of the Supreme Court possibly. Are you aware of any of
I'm
that?
not aware. I know that the King County was trying to put safe injection sites, which is different than the needle exchange program.
Oh, very much so, but I'd just like to hear what the court has to say at some point.
Canada has injection sites.
I know it's not working so good.
I don't know, I'm just saying they have.
I know it.
Yeah, Vancouver has.
Vancouver has.
Safe injection sites. I've seen them.
Did you have any commissioner items?
No, I'm good at 11 o'clock.
Me too. So that's the conclusion of the planning session for today.
Right. Thank you.